Hello, welcome to Mind, Body, Spirit Summit. I'm here with beautiful Julie Fedeli. Julie, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I love you, Nicole. It's just my pleasure.
I'm so excited. So, I'm going to read a little bit about Julie and then we're going to get right into it. So, Julie Fedeli graduated from the University of Michigan and worked in finance in New York City for many years. After she began to practice meditation, she felt called to leave finance and went on to graduate from the 4-year healing science training program, the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, and then completed a 3-year training at the Center for Intentional Living. She is an innovative entrepreneur. Her mission is to empower women to find abundance in all aspects of her life. Her business generates $2 million per year, and her massively transformative purpose is to empower 100,000 women around the world to set themselves free by using the Orenda products to enhance their health and well-being, and by using the Orenda business opportunity to become financially independent. And how awesome that we're doing your interview on International Women's Day.
Yeah, and I have had a fabulous day, and I love finishing it up with you. It's just perfect.
Yay!
It's just
Okay,
perfect.
wonderful. I mean, let's get right into it. I'd love to hear about your background, and I just still love that you are like working in New York City in finance because I've really only known your like very Zen state, Julie. So and talk
Yeah.
about the transition. How did you, what did you feel in your body? How did you know that you had to leave this?
So that was a long time ago, dearest, right? Because I'll be turning 55 in a month. So that was 30 years ago. And New York City 30 years ago was a lot of fun, for sure. And, you know, I I was really a driver all through high school and college, and I was also very interested in making a difference. And finance was just a place where I could really dive into, the money paradigm here on the planet. I it's kind of an, I don't tell many people, but I guess now I can share with you and others that I worked in crude oil futures. That was my first job. I hustled to get that job. And I would eat lunch and I would feel like I was having a heart attack. And I thought, like, okay, this is the way it's going to be, right? And we can talk about it. International Women's Day. I remember my boss; he was driving a red Ferrari, and like I was earning a very large amount of money, and for my age. And I remember him saying to me, like, he's like, well, women cry too much. You'll never be able to do what I do. And, the interesting thing is, I think some women my age probably would have been like, I'm going to do it. And I really was like, oh my gosh, maybe he's right. Like maybe this isn't the place for me. And I subsequently then took classes at the New York Institute of Finance, actually, and went deeper into finance and worked for a high net worth individual managing his stock and option portfolio. And it was actually during that time that I had a friend who said to me, there's an enlightened woman in upstate New York. Would you like to go and meet her? And I was like, enlightened woman? Like, how cool is that, And I was very spiritual always as a child, so like that was like, that's a done deal. Let's go. And I had no context for what was about to happen. I had no context that my life was about to change drastically, and that someone who was very driven in high school and college, and then in New York City, was about to just have a huge shift. So I met her, and I just felt my heart explode. Aww. And I have words for it now, but at that time I didn't know what was happening at all. Yeah. I just felt this huge pulsation in my chest, and somebody said to me, what happened to you? And I was like, I don't know. And that whole summer I spent in a 2-week silent meditation retreat.
Wow.
And that was like diving into the deep end of an ocean. I had never sat, in meditation formally, and we were sitting for hours and we were chanting Sanskrit mantras, and it was the energy was so powerful. And again, you have to realize this was 30 years ago in New York. There were even in New York, there were very few people doing this kind of thing. And at that time also, I met a woman who was, now we have words for it, but she was a healing practitioner.
Yeah.
And she began to do work on me. And I would have these, again, no context, these very powerful, wild experiences. I would feel like I was flying through like beautiful clouds and blue sky. And I was going to say, I've never done LSD, so I don't know, So anyway, so the bottom line is I was like, okay, there's something bigger happening here. And I remember I was leaving one evening after a long session of meditation, and my teacher said to me, "Who are you and where are you from?" And I said, you know me. I had my Fedeli is my married name, and I was like, you know me, and I'm from New York City. And she shook her head 3 times and said, "You're a different person.
Wow.
You're a different person." And I went back to, at that time, then I had transitioned out of finance because my second job that I was working at, my boss said to me, "Julie, you need to do something where you're helping people." So I actually took a 50% pay cut and was working with inner city kids, helping them get placed, was teaching them what we would call business math and computers at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically making them able to work for large commercial banks and insurance companies. And they were kids who were, a lot of them from Bed-Stuy, who was just so apparent, just no access to, like what we know now, no access to good food, and were put in special ed, not because they weren't brilliant, but, so
yeah.
It was really a time of a deep heart awakening for me. So I went back to my job working with the kids, and I thought, well, this is the same. She said everything's different. It's all the same. And within 6 weeks, literally 6 weeks, my whole life just was like kapooey. And I moved back to Chicago, and I started commuting for 4 years to New York for the Barbara Brennan School of Healing.
Wow.
So, yeah, and Barbara, at that time, Barbara's school was only open for 4 years. Now you can get your BA or your master's.
Wow.
Her school's been certified in Florida in healing science.
Yeah.
So she was really the first. Her teacher was Rosalind Briere, and Rosalind began to quantify the energy field. So she was the one to say, this is a chakra. It's a wheel of light. And here are the drawings of the chakra systems. And Barbara Brennan then created a 4-year training program in basically invisible stuff. We would be tested. We would have like 25. I'm sure if they watch this, they'll be like, what? But we would have like a list of 25 things that we'd have to be tested on that were completely invisible. So you would be watching me do something like, like I'm doing, laying on a fans. How do they even, it's like, so it was really rigorous. And we had to be in therapy once a week.
Wow.
For 4 years, we had to be in therapy because the premise was you cannot possibly do work with somebody else unless you've done your own work.
You go through your own stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So
wow.
That's the long story, babe.
That's your little journey from, and I want to backtrack just for a second. When you said it had been 6 weeks and you had really felt like, everything was different, and I moved to Chicago. Can you go into that a little bit more of just like, what did it feel like? What changed for you? How did you know you had to leave New York? Like, what was that?
I think I was still really asleep. I mean, here's the thing. It wasn't like some little angel came and took me by the hand and brought me from Chicago to New York and was like, you're supposed to go to healing school and leave finance and everything's going to be pretty. It was really messy. It was
Yeah.
totally messy. I fell in love with a guy who's was like turned out to be, it was an extraordinary and still is an extraordinary artist, but was an alcoholic. And he was here in Chicago.
Yeah.
And the minute I got settled here, he left. And
Wow.
he always said, Jules, I was the one who was the vehicle to bring you back here so you would choose, the rest of your life.
Right.
So we just don't know, right? And
Yeah.
I had friends who wanted me to move to Aspen, and we went out to Aspen, and I was going to help them open up a big retail store in Aspen, and the wildest stuff happened there. And they the whole deal fell through, and I was like, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
I was so successful, and what am I doing now?
Yeah.
And the minute I committed to 100% to going to healing school, that's when I met Dan. That's when I met my husband, and things began to settle into place,
Yeah, I love that. I mean, part of the thing I really wanted to talk to you about was manifesting abundance, because I'm trying to think of how long I've known you for now. Maybe 6 years. 7
Really?
years?
I thought it was 1,000.
I know. I mean, well, many, many lifetimes, I'm sure. But
Yeah, probably. Rom's 16, my son's 16.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep,
like
probably
8.
about that time. And you've always been very business minded, but it's very spiritually led. And I don't think that it's talked about enough how those two worlds can really come together. And that's why I couldn't think of anybody better than you to talk about this with, and just your ability to use your spiritual journey to just completely catapult your business and love what you do and meet these great people. And you've already been talking about sort of following signs and as you're following your heart. And I'd love to go more into that. So take me a little bit through the progression of your business and what helped you elevate to the growth that you're at today. And if that involves some spiritual, great. If it's more just steps, I mean, whatever feels good to you.
It's interesting because having worked in crude oil futures and then options and that world, and I actually have a lot of friends who worked in that world and then have transitioned out. But, there was this struggle inside of me. First of all, when you live in New York, it's fabulous to have money. So I'm just going to be really bottom line about that, because it was an expensive city 30 years ago. And most of my friends were really successful. So I had a reference point that that's what I was supposed to be earning.
Sure.
So, but there was a part of me I'm making money from what? Right. What value am I offering other than being, making money from more money?
Yeah.
And I was actually at a place choosing between my MBA and going to Barbara Brennan. And I remember I applied for my MBA at the University of Virginia, and I wrote my essays on parasitic businesses, and I was like, that was never going to get me into business school, but now it would, right? 30 years later, people would be like, essentially we're saying, how can we be sustainable? How can we add value? How can we support the goodness on the planet?
Yeah.
Businesses that are, certainly, that's debatable on some level, but look at Patagonia, right?
Absolutely.
So, but again, that wasn't the operating. So that's not what they were looking for at that time. So,
right.
So I think for me, the struggle always was, can you create I really believe that we're given desires, and I'm not talking about desires that are negative, but we're given sort of these prayers of the heart so that they can lead us on the path, right? I didn't even know I wanted a son, but that was like a prayer that arose in my heart. And then I had this incredible son, and I'm a very devoted mama,
Very. Yeah, very.
So I think that for me, the beauty now is I love that I can support my son. I'm a Taurus, so I really appreciate beauty, and I love a beautiful home. And I also can help other women in a myriad of ways. I mean, I can help other women get healthier, which I do with or without the Arenda business. That's always, whenever I'm sitting with a woman, I really want to support her in whatever her next step is in cracking the code, even if it's a 3-minute conversation. And I think like that's the bottom line. I think the beauty for me is now that I'm earning money and helping other women earn money. And it's such a blessing to be able, I feel, I mean, it's such a blessing to be able to add value to the world in that way. And, I mean, my business happened. I was very sick for 9 years after our son was born. And I went to India on a meditation retreat, another silent meditation retreat, with no intention other than he was 9 and it was time for me to take some time for myself. And I had never been to our mother ashram. I had never. So I wanted to go. And the last day of the retreat, I just felt this incredible impulse that I wanted to be able to give back in a very big way. That being a mother was, like Ram that was awesome, having this wonderful son, but I wanted to be able to give back in another way. And I really prayed that I could earn money so that I could contribute, so that I could contribute to the world. And I mean, I think the coolest thing on the planet is to be able to support other people, and also like to be able, money is just this fabulous vehicle, right? And I can make a donation, to do so much good, because I can't personally, my girlfriend just went to Malawi. I can't do that right now. I can't leave my business and my son and do that. So I can contribute financially, and then I can help all these people that she works with have bikes, so young girls aren't getting raped on the way to school. And I mean, there's so many ways, they say offer time or treasure, so it's like in that situation, I could offer treasure.
Yeah. I love that.
So it's cool. I mean, my business really, I feel like everybody is sort of under an umbrella that's part of my team, because the business grew out of a prayer, as opposed to like, I'm going to make this thing happen. That was what was happening in New York. It's very linear, right? I mean, it's like, what does that look like, right? I mean, like the masculine energy, like make stuff happen. My adrenals, I'm going to run cortisol through my adrenals. And I think the feminine is oxytocin. Yeah. That's our hormone of abundance, is oxytocin, like tend and befriend. And I want you to be abundant. I want you to have a beautiful love life. I want you to have beautiful children. I want that for everybody on the planet. And I have to say, for right now, I'm just focusing on women. I feel like I'm like, hey, we can catch up a little bit,
Well, and I love that. And that's great. And I think when you talk about, gosh, I have like so many questions from what you just said, but I want to go to the first one that came to my mind, which was, you have had a meditation practice for a long time. And how did you use meditation with the business? Like, how do you see like it might not be like an A plus B equals abundance, but how do you see meditation kind of be a part of your business and being an entrepreneur? I mean, really that's a huge part of obviously what you do. So, well,
I mean, really, as I said, my business, and I do share with everyone, my business grew out of a prayer, So I think that's really the bottom line. And, I've been doing this particular business for 8 years. And I think, because I was pretty successful in high school and college and in New York, I kind of, it was in there that I could do this too, Mm-hmm. But I think that I've evolved and that now I'm just like, it was initially about my own health and, building my business in a way, even though I was so happy to help people. Now I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just want to help other women, mm-hmm. Like if I I mean, and as they say, what would you do? What would you want to do if you could do anything and you knew that you would be paid for it, or, money was no issue, right?
Right.
And I would totally be doing this now. I mean, I feel like there are so many women who are physically not healthy, and my meditation path is the foundation for my life. And I was afraid to say that even 5 years ago. It was like, well, I mean, in New York, you could say that stuff, but here in Chicago, it was like, what is she talking about? Chakra? like people, when I first moved back, somebody said, you're a what? You're a dealer? I was like, yeah, I'm a dealer. So like, okay, no, I'm a healing practitioner. But anyway, so, I mean, I think that the other thing is, being an entrepreneur is, I mean, bottom line is everybody has stress, right? And being an entrepreneur can be particularly stressful because there are fires that happen. And I notice that when I am more dedicated and disciplined with my meditation practice, and it has had many iterations over the years, so I can share with you what I do now, but that my days are magical. And I have like an abundant well of love, I mean, I went to Whole Foods today and I saw a woman who is, a cashier, and she, I know, was struggling with a malignancy in her breast, and I hadn't seen her for a long time, and I had asked people about her, and I was like, Gloria! And I literally like left my other cashier.
Oh my gosh, I love Gloria, by the way. I haven't been to Whole Foods. I was like, I haven't lived in Chicago now for over 2 years, but I remember Gloria. Oh, how funny.
Oh my God, I'm going to tell her.
Please.
Oh my God. Okay, see, I hugged her for both of us today.
Thank goodness.
So, I mean, I was just like, that's the way I just want my life to be. So what I do now, I have been doing for the past month, is I swim every morning, and I swim with a snorkel. So it's like a, right? So there's the breathing, and I have an aqua pod. It's an aqua iPod. Somebody took the iPod and like somehow got Apple to agree to make it waterproof. Anyway, it's a fabulous company.
Wow.
I think it's Aquapod is what you look up. And I listen to my Sanskrit mantras on my Aquapod and swim.
Wow.
And it's like the best multitasking because I'm like, I used to sit before Ram was born for an hour and a half, right? And after Ram was born, like mothers get special dispensation. 10 minutes of meditation, I'd be like, woo, I feel it. Awesome. Ready to go. And now that he's 16, the universe is like, sorry, you can't just do the 10-minute plug-in, girlfriend. You need a little more time. So now I'm like, okay, cool. I can swim for 40 minutes. And it's like, I'm meditating while I'm swimming.
That's amazing.
I have flippers.
Good. Oh, I can just picture you with your little snorkel and your little flippers.
I know. I love it.
That's perfect.
It's totally. So, I mean, that for me right now works.
And
right?
you notice your whole day is different on the days you practice. Yeah.
Totally. And I feel on the days that I don't practice, like I'm a radio that can't get a clear signal. I mean, I'm okay. I can function on fumes, because I've been doing it for 30 years, but not for long.
Yeah. And it's if you could choose something different, then of course you would do that because you know how you feel when you practice. Yeah,
and it's not for everybody.
Right.
I mean, I think, sure, meditation's become, people are now like, oh, a lot of people are meditating in very different ways, which is awesome because everybody's different. But I just feel like, it's not for everybody, but it definitely keeps me totally in the zone. I know what to do. My intuition is clear. I have more courage and confidence. It's a totally different thing.
I love that. And I want to talk a little bit too, because just talking about the difference, you brought up a little bit about the masculine and the feminine. And, part of being your own business owner, there is times where it's like, okay, I got to use a little bit of my masculine and I got to bang this out or, work on this. And then how do you balance your masculine and your feminine as a business owner? Because I know there's a juggle there sometimes.
Well, it's interesting because I think that I probably in the past 8 years have developed more of my masculine side. I definitely feel more masculine than I did 8 years ago, but I wasn't well 8 years ago, So, and so I'm exploring that for myself, I mean, in a variety of ways, like, especially since I'm 55 and postmenopausal. And I want to live to be 108. There are 108 beads on a mala. I think that would be like totally cool. And that means like there has to be, I think, I and this is, up to every woman, but I want to stay juicy.
Yeah.
I want to stay juicy. I want to stay, and I'm not just talking about in all my, my yoni and everything else. I'm talking about I just really want to be juicy everywhere, full of love. And I think and again, this is not true for all women, but for me, when I have less estrogen, I definitely feel more dry and tight and flat. Mm-hmm. So, and again, I think that everybody's different, that's not, some women don't experience, I have girlfriends who, feel awesome, and so I think it just depends. I mean, because of my health challenges, I just, in the past that I just know I feel so much better, when I have more life force. Yeah. So there are certain things that I do to make sure that I have that, and will have to do the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, to answer the masculine, I just think we have to watch it as women, that we're not running intense amounts of cortisol through our adrenals, and that we're paying attention to what feeds us. Because I have so many girlfriends my age who have had cancer, and I have a lot of alpha females. And I think we've run pretty fast and hard for a long time. And I just think that we have to remember how to really nourish ourselves instead. And I think we take care of a lot of, people talk about this all the time. And I know women like this, but we take care of a lot of people, especially those of us who have the capacity to do so. And I think that, it's just really important for women to really explore, okay, so I'm this fabulous, and it's more socially acceptable to be a woman now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just feel like I don't know about you, but I feel it's really, I've been like, oh my God, ladies, I've been waiting 30 years for everybody to catch up with this Me Too thing. And like time's up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like now I have this, I've always had women around me, but now I feel like we have this extended tribe of women who are like, I'm going to support you. I don't know you, but I'm going to support you,
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to see all these women rising up.
Cool. And it seems like there's such a difference from, like you said, like 30 years ago. And it's so different, which is so cool. But you said, there's a lot of women who are, and what seems to be different is driving and, being a businesswoman or being a mom. And they sort of lose that feminine part of themselves, as you said, as it's like cortisol is like surging through and adrenaline is surging through us all day. And so it's, how do you stay successful and relax into your feminine? And I feel like that's like this great question, and every woman does it differently. And I just would love to know how you do it, because I've traveled with you. And I love your rituals and seriously, like one of my favorite things was when we were at a conference and I slept longer than you, of course. You're like up and doing everything, but you had made your bed and you were like, successful entrepreneurs make their bed every morning. And I was like mind blown. Like I was like, they do?
I'm sure I made that up in the moment. But, the thing is, they say, the bottom line is it's really important to accomplish things first thing in the morning, because then you feel like, okay, check, bed made, check, went swimming, Okay, like by 9 o'clock, I've done some,
The day's a win.
The day's a win, right? And I think the most important thing that I'm noticing now that I think is nourishing women is I think women are learning how to support other women. And I notice, I was at a luncheon today with a woman who's Afghani, who created this whole robotics program and tech program in Afghanistan. Was threatened by the Taliban.
Oh my gosh.
And her robotics team were denied visas, and 54 congressmen were like, sorry, the Afghani robotics team is coming to the United States. So there was the current president signed something and said, okay, they can come. But she's this amazing woman, and she was all about supporting women, younger women, to create a different life for themselves. And she said it's beginning to transform the culture. And the culture being that men are like, wow, women are smart. Wow, women are. So, we just don't know what we don't see sometimes. I think you are very much ahead of the curve, so you can see things in the future. You can see what's possible. But not everybody's wired that way. And so this, things just, the systems stay the systems. So I think the most important thing right now is that women are really looking at other women and saying, I notice so many women are smiling at me now. Or I'm smiling at so many women. I don't know which it is. But I'm just like, wow, we're like smiling at each other. Like, okay, go girl, we got you. I'm just like, okay, cool. I'll do the smiling thing. Okay. So I think that's very healing, right, babe? Because I think I spent a lot of my life and probably a lot of my girlfriends, which is why maybe we have this, there's the mental, emotional, spiritual component of autoimmune, right? The body fighting against itself, the body attacking itself. And I have a lot of girlfriends with autoimmune, and we know, right? There are close to 50 million women in the United States now or something with hypothyroidism. And, so, and the thyroid's in the throat, So I think women are learning like, okay, I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to wear what I want. I'm going to support other women in being beautiful. And we learn to compete, and I think we watched men compete and we imitated that behavior. Mm-hmm. And I think we're like, okay, when one of us wins, we all win, and let's all win together, So it's such a different model. And I think that's why the Dalai Lama said, the Western woman will heal the world, but I think it's probably the woman, women will help heal the world.
Well, one of my questions is, what's your favorite quote? And that's and I've heard you say that so many times, and I love it every single time you say it because it's so cool. Well,
and I think it was like, people were like, what? Because he said it, and I think people were like, wait, we got to analyze that. But I think the bottom line is, when I started having those underground goddess salons so many years ago, my whole intention was so that women could gather together and support each other, and because I do think, especially in this country, like this luncheon I was at today, I've heard Peter Diamandis is a really cool guy, and he wrote a book called Bold, and then another one called Abundance. The future is better than you think. And he said that you and I now are living like kings and queens used to live. Like, I'm swimming in a swimming pool with an aqua pod and a snorkel. I ate a salad and salmon at a luncheon with little pink cupcakes. You know what I'm saying? I didn't eat the cupcake. But like, I looked around and I was like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. People are, and if I have that kind of privilege, then it's my responsibility to make a difference. It's my responsibility to use my voice. It's my responsibility to help other women. It's my responsibility to share what I know if, somebody's open to hearing it, and even if they're not sometimes, So I think all that stuff, I don't know, honey, I think I would say a lot of that stuff is female. you
I
know?
no, I love that. And you know, where is the masculine place in all of this that you see as we move forward? You know, where the men are like, where, like I have a very, oh gosh, he'll be okay with me saying this, but sensitive fiance, and he gets this. He loves, he's all
He's so
supportive and
big though, honey. He's
yeah,
sensitive. He's like a sensitive teddy bear.
he is. He's gonna kill me. And
Oh,
but
okay.
where's the masculine place in this that you see as we move forward as a culture, as a society?
I don't know. That's a deeper discussion,
That is
I
a
mean,
deep discussion.
my spiritual teacher is female, and her teacher was male, and his teacher was male. And I think, it's very interesting that right now, on my spiritual path, we have a woman. And she's been the teacher since 86, 84. So, and I think, my husband said to me, he thinks that it's time for men to support women. I don't give anybody my phone number, or my email, or my Instagram account, because I don't want any feedback on that. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I do think like I do think for some men, their place now will be behind the woman. Like I believe it's like, I don't know, honey. It is in some instances it'll be time.
Yeah.
And because there are some things that women can do well. I was going to say better, but well.
Well, absolutely.
And here's the thing, I've been following a couple of political candidates here in Chicago, and I've been to some Emily's List, the support female candidates, right? And on both sides of the aisle. And they are so incredibly qualified. And the reason being is they've had to be incredibly qualified to get to that place, So you have all these like underused resource, right? Like women are this underused resource. There are all these brilliant women wanting to contribute, wanting to make a difference, wanting to create beneficial, positive change. And, every woman that I've listened to with a huge vision of what they want. And usually it involves making the world better for our children, and they're really, really smart and very qualified. So I think like it's time to let some women step up and take over, because like, damn, they can do a good job.
Absolutely.
And we need people who can do a good job.
Absolutely. Well, to circle back a little bit to, you being this amazing entrepreneur, and you touched on these women who have these big visions. How would you suggest to somebody who's starting out, who wants to own their own business, or they want to be an entrepreneur, and they, how would you suggest they look at finding their vision, or how would you help them? What would be some advice that you would give them starting out?
Well, I think one of the challenges for women, I think you have very healthy self-esteem. I think your parents loved you. I think you had a really supportive father, but there are a lot of women who have not. And so I think a lot of women sort of struggle with self-esteem. And I think our hormonal system, we ebb and flow with the moon, right? So some days we feel fabulous, and some days we feel expansive, and other times we feel contracted, So I think that it's important to make time and space to get to know how beautiful and amazing and powerful we are. And for some women that may be running, for some women that may be going to church, synagogue, the mosque, for some women that may be hanging out and in a women's group, or even, going for a glass of wine with their girlfriends that nourishes them. Because I think that there is definitely an epidemic of women who don't believe that they can do it, because we really haven't seen great examples of being able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the first place to really begin to spend time with the things that really energize you, you feel happy, and
Mm-hmm.
make you remember your own inner greatness,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And for me, that's been meditation. You know, meditation has strengthened my, you know, my feelings about really who I truly am, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And what else, darling? My 55-year-old brain checked out.
No, it's okay. My 35-year-old brain checked out. But just
Oh, resources for people who want to be entrepreneurs, right? So here's the thing, like, oh my God, there is, first of all, like, there was no internet. I mean, like, when my son was born, the internet was just starting, right?
mm-hmm.
Now you can Google, and I mean, like, there's crowdfunding. There are online courses for everything. I mean, my son can take a finance class from Yale online for free.
Wow.
Okay, so there's Coursera, there's edX, there are all these courses you can take for free, and so General Assembly, which isn't free, and but like, I get a newsletter called Hustle. I get a newsletter called CB Insights, and there has never been more money on the planet for somebody who wants to create a business. Like, there are plenty of people who would like to fund your business, whether it's like the guy in Dubuque, Iowa, or a huge venture, you know, an angel VC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like the most important thing is, I feel like each of us has this incredible, like, this gem inside of us. And I mean, really, for me, the reason I want women to clean up their health is because I feel like this dysfunction in the physiology is an interruption, so they can't access their truth, you know?
Ooh.
So I feel like as you get healthier, you like, oh, wow, I've got this cool light, you know, like this little light of mine. I want to make it shine, right? Like, and the more people that are shining their light, oh my God, you know, there's going to be peace. So
we have to talk about that some more. This idea.
I want to do a shout out. So for Marie Forleo.
I love her.
Yeah. So marieforleo.com. I mean, the bottom line is, you know, I have read so many reviews. Like, people are like, I got my MBA, but this was so, you know, much more valuable. And she offers scholarships, and she offers this B School program every year that supports women it's incredibly valuable for the amount of money that it is. And it supports women in creating a business, create a business and a life that you love, right? That's her tagline, right?
I love it. Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like if you want to do it, you know, like, there are so many, all of my girlfriends, I mean, like, I'm just like, you're doing that? I mean, a girlfriend just told me yesterday this thing she's creating. I'm like, that is so cool, you know? And so I just feel like, and look at you, honey. Oh my gosh, you know? I mean, like, you're doing amazing, amazing work for your age, you know? So I just feel like, we just have to believe in ourselves, you know, and really, really connect to that place inside of ourselves that deserves a beautiful life.
Oh, I
really
love
beautiful,
that.
You know?
And before we close, I have to touch on that, because I think, you know, when people think, women especially, but anybody, I'm going to eat cleaner so that this ailment or symptom I have goes away. But not often do they put that together, like you said, where when you really cleanse the body and eat cleaner, you find that light that you have, or that intuition, and that, I mean, speak a little bit more to that, because I think that is so not talked about and so important.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the girlfriend I was sitting with yesterday, if you can tell, I hang out with women all the time. So the girlfriend I was sitting with yesterday said to me, Jules, like, okay, so how come I can't get everything I need from food? And I was like, totally get it. I was in that place, you know, like, I thought everything I needed I could get from food. And I was like, our food supply is just not awesome, You know, I mean, I had a friend who just went to Hawaii, stayed at a biodynamic farm, said she had never tasted a carrot in her life. What, like this carrot, you know?
Ugh.
And she was like, everybody was freaking out over these carrots. And she was like, it's the soil. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we get our organic carrots, but now I get organic carrots from a farm in Wisconsin, not from Whole Foods. I'm grateful for Whole Foods. Wow. But, you know, it tastes different than the Whole Foods carrot, right? So anyway, my point is you cannot get everything you need from food. And as much as I really believe that for many people, food could be a total 100% healing. Just changing their diet, totally 100%. I mean, for me, that wasn't the gig. When I got sick, I was already eating organic food and practicing meditation for 15 years. Like, why was I the canary in the coal mine?
Right.
You know, so for me, I had to take it to a deeper level. Yeah. And I personally feel like the pituitary for humans is a really big deal. I mean, when I was a healing practitioner, the pineal gland, I would work with the pineal gland and just really support people in having more light, you know, and just holding my hands above their head and just allowing for more light to come into their whole being through the pineal gland. And, you know, the pituitary is right there. And I think that a lot of people have, you know, the pituitary being the master gland for the entire endocrine system. And for women, especially postpartum, when we push for the baby, the pituitary can come out of its bony cradle and it can begin to atrophy. And so the whole endocrine system can go offline. And then, you know, am I really going off?
No, you're great. Keep going.
Okay. That there are also toxins in our environment that are false estrogens, petrochemicals, right? That will literally, you know, become they're called xenoestrogens, and they tie up our estrogen receptor sites. And so your body's like, wow, I got lots of estrogen, you know? And I remember I went to see a doctor when I was sick for my blood work, and he's like, wow, you're estrogen dominant. And I was like, that seems really weird. Like my body was designed to be well. Why am I estrogen dominant? Why would and there was never like, there's a reason you're estrogen dominant, you know, and now we have a lot more information, obviously. But I think that's the other thing. Like a lot of women, when our endocrine systems go offline, and to go back to the masculine feminine thing, I mean, I think partially what's happening for women is we're really deeply healing, you know, and I think it's essential that we detox on a cellular level. I think it's essential for some women to really restore their pituitary health so that the whole endocrine system can hum. And I think that, you know, repair, when that kind of repair happens again, like the whole body starts to sing. And I think then we get, you know, we're like, hey, I can see you. I love you. You know, like, wow. It's like, you know, we wake up. You know, so
Julie, that's so well explained. I love that.
Well, I love you, honey.
Julie,
and I'm so happy you're happy.
So I know you said you didn't want people to reach you just to comment on that thing, but I do want people to be able to find you.
Well, they can call you.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, honey.
How can people find you, Jules?
My website, which is juliefedeli.com.
Beautiful.
That's the best place to reach me. And I have an Instagram account, which is Jules Fedeli.
I love it.
Yeah.
Julie, honey, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Honey, you're just an amazing, amazing vehicle for grace. So thank you for being in my life. I've always loved spending time with you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Julie.
I love you.